if there's changes within those dates, it'll be listed on a NOTAM. So they'll say like, the minimums are changed, right?
So the point is, there's no website or page you can look at that says like, hey, we've implemented this edition or whatever. Doesn't have that.
So there is a book that has that, which is the FDC NOTAMs, Flight Data Center. And there's a list of all permanent NOTAMs. But that's when you would look according to the amendment. That'd be a last change instrument approach procedure. And that's why you have to have a current approach procedure in the cockpit in order to be able to do this. So they're constantly revised, right? And if there is a change within the revision dates or within the dates of validity, in accordance with 91-103, right? A pilot departing the vicinity of an airport or under IFR must get the following. Weather briefing, right? Just a couple of them. Alternates if used, fuel, distance, takeoff, landing distance, performance data. One of them is NOTAMs. So, i.e., hey, I'm flying an IFR flight from Montgomery Field to John Wayne I'm leaving at 6 o'clock local. The approximate flight time is 1 hour and 5 minutes. I'm going at 6,000 feet. I would like a standard weather briefing, right? They would say, oh yeah, there's a NOTAM for the ILS of a change. That's where you get that information. Requirement for every flight in accordance with 91-103. Good? Let's talk about this thing now.
Yeah, just to add to that, Professor, the FAA does have a
list of NOTAMs.
list, yeah,
Yeah.
on their website.
Yeah. But again, you would get that, and I believe that list of NOTAMs on the website, somewhere there's a disclaimer. It says, the list of NOTAMs might not be current and up to date. Please refer to a weather briefer prior to any flight. Is that on the very bottom of it?
Not in this section, but it might be somewhere.
Was that?
I'm glad that they hide that, but it's not just.
Yeah, it's not, the only thing it says at the bottom, it says page last modified December 7, 2022, so I think this just let you know that.
That's the last date
time,
of it,
yeah.
yeah. So like they have a temporary flight restrictions, TFR webpage, and it used to be, at least on the bottom of the webpage, it would say, this does not fulfill the requirements of 91-103. Please receive a weather briefing to get all the latest temporary flight restrictions. So let's talk about holding procedures. This is going to be reviewed for people in the lab class. However, it'll be a good review. It'll be a new introduction. So here's how I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break it down into a hold procedure itself and the entry procedures. So we're going to talk about the hold itself, the positions or parts of the hold, and then we'll be more specific, i.e. we'll talk about this entry procedure. Good? So a hold, key parts to a hold. There's always a fix. In this case, the fix is an intersection, seg or intersection. Sometimes the fixes could be a VOR, that's your fix. Sometimes the fix might be a distance off of a VOR, that could be a fix. A fix could be a GPS waypoint. So there's a fix. I'm gonna label the fix just as a triangle. The hold always flies towards the fix and then outbound from the fix and comes back. So that's the hold. I'm going to label this hold as a standardized hold. In IFR flight, standard, everything is to the right. VFR flight, standard, everything is to the left. Like a standard traffic pattern under VFR is a left pattern. A non-standard traffic pattern under VFR is a right pattern. Standard under IFR is to the right. Good? So the hold goes to the right. This is a standard hold. So we've got the hold and we have the fix. This is the fix. Rule number one is you always have to first get to the fix and then figure out what you're going to do. So first things first, get to the fix. So it doesn't matter which direction I'm coming in. I might be coming in from this direction. I could be coming in from this direction. It could be very convenient and I'm flying on an airway to a fix and holding. In this case, I'm coming down from this direction and I'm getting to the fix for the hold. There's two sides of this hold. There's the holding side and the non-holding side. The holding side would be the side that you're wasting time on. This is the holding side. What's the hold used for? The hold is used for time separation for aircraft, right? You've got a bunch of airplanes arriving at the same position. They can stack the holds. They can have an aircraft here, an aircraft 1,000 feet above that, an aircraft 1,000 feet above that. This aircraft's holding, and if it's involved with an approach, the airplane gets assigned the approach. Once the aircraft is inbound on the approach or on the ground, the next airplane gets down lower, the next airplane gets lower, and so forth. So that would be a stacked hold. A hold could be used for various purposes. En route. You've got an airplane that's faster than the airplane in front of it. Okay, we need to give you a little bit of a timeout here, but an airplane just can't pull off the side of the road and pull the emergency brake. So what do they have to do? They have to keep them in the hold. So the design of the hold is to waste time or provide separation, or somehow to get yourself turned around to be able to enter a procedure. And that would be called either a procedure turn or a course reversal. Good? There's the holding side, there's the non-holding side. A normalized hold has the timing on the non-holding side 1 minute. And I'll explain that in a minute. So you want to make this time here 1 minute. The safe zone for the hold is in the center. Meaning it's okay to turn into the center of it off of one of 3 types, in this case one of 2 types of procedure entries, which we're going to discuss now. Another part of the hold is the position called a beam the fix. Okay. So we've got the hold procedure, we've got the fix, we've got a position that's a beam the fix, we've got the non-holding side and the holding side. I'm going to go over 3 different hold entries to start to make sense of this thing. The first entry. So we're going to call the first entry a direct entry. Let's just say for giggles now that this fix is a VOR. Fix is a VOR, thanks to me. And let's just say, for simplicity's sake, this is radial 270 off of that VOR. That helped a lot. Let's just say I'm flying to the VOR on radial 270 and I'm tracking in this direction. I would have 090 in on my OBS because that's the direction of flight I'm going. On the OBS Omni-Bearing Selector. That's my navigation equipment. This might not make too much sense as far as the application phase for the people who are not in the lab class, but just bear with me. So it has 0902 because that's the directionality of flight. I'm on the 270 radial. Right when I cross the VOR, the to flag becomes a from flag, and now I'm 090 from. At that moment, I make a right turn to enter the hold. The inbound leg to the hold uses navigation equipment. The outbound leg, you're flying a heading. So in this case, I'm inbound on a heading 0900, utilizing my navigation equipment, in this case a VOR, 0902. I cross the VOR. Now I'm coming from the 0900 on the radial. Right when the to flag flips to a from flag, I turn right. And now I want to fly or track a heading of 270. The opposite of the inbound leg. I want to start my timer when I'm abeam the fix. I want to start my timer when I'm abeam the fix, or when I get established on a course of 270, whatever comes later. I.e., there's wind, and the wind's out of the south, or the wind's out of the north. I might end up tracking 270 outbound a little bit before, a little bit after, because the turn ended up being tighter, or if there's wind out of this direction, things might change a little bit as far as when I get the to from flag, or as far as when I'm abeam the fix, or when I get established on that course, whatever's later. How do I know I'm abeam the fix? On the VOR, if I'm inbound in this direction, I've got 0902. This entire side is the to side if I have 0900 in. This entire side is the from side if I have 0900 in. I get over here, it's from. I get to be in the fix, it's now to. The idea is this. I time this for 1 minute on my first pass. I fly 1 minute outbound. At the 1 minute mark, I turn inbound to intercept the radial on my navigation equipment. Once I'm intercepted with the needle centered, I'm tracking on that line, I start my timer. I want this side to be 1 minute, as said earlier. I want the inbound leg to be 1 minute. Well, let's say I'm established in the hold and they just say, hold west as published. This is holding west of the VOR as published. That's the way it was published. Let's just say the inbound leg, when I flew off my course, it ended up being 40 seconds when I started the timer. On the holding side, I'm going to make the adjustment to make the inbound leg 1 minute. So I would extend this by 20 seconds. I'd fly 1 minute and 20. I'd turn inbound and hopefully make that 1 minute inbound. That's a standard hold. That's a direct entry into a standard hold. I'm flying in the direction of the hold itself. I get established. I make my turn. I fly outbound for 1 minute. I make my turn. I hopefully fly inbound for 1 minute, and I make my turn, and I'm in this race course. Good? Sort of? Kind of get the premise? Go for it?
Is it always over a VOR?
No, it could be a fix. It could be a DME fix. It could be a GPS waypoint. It could be 2 radials off of a VOR that you're holding on. It's just some sort of fix.
So then how does it switch from to from?
Well, in that case, you would know, in this case here, let's just say it's a DME fix, right? Let's say it's a GPS fix. If I'm on this side of the GPS fix, it would say I have to go this direction to hold it, to get to it. Once I get to beam it, it would point, or it would say I have to go that direction to get to it. If it is like a DME fix, like it's 18 miles off of a VOR, right? If I'm coming into the VOR, and let's just say the VOR is over here. 19.1, 19, so forth, I hit 18, boom, I make the turn. In that case, you're gonna guesstimate exactly where you're at.
That's the
Okay.
one we do with Brownsville and Pogey, right?
You don't hold that Pogey, that's the one we do in Oceanside.
Oceanside.
That's the one that you did at
Haley.
Vista intersection off of the Oceanside Mist, right? So in that case, if you don't have the flag flip, you're guesstimating it.
Okay.
There are other ways to do it. It would make more sense if you had the equipment in front of you to be able to show you, okay? You can use bearing. Let's not get into that. Let's just guesstimate it. So the idea is, again, to make the inbound leg 1 minute, the outbound leg is adjusting to make the inbound 1 minute. Standard turns are to the right. You have a non-holding side, a holding side. The holding side, you fly a heading. The non-holding side, you're flying a radial. You're using your navigation equipment. That's just a direct entry into a hold procedure. Good? I know there's questions. We're gonna go over this more. Let's talk about another type of entry. I'm gonna draw the hold again. Here's your fix, whatever it is. Standard hold to the right. Here's your fix. Whatever the fix is. Waypoint, VOR, whatever it is. There's an entry called a parallel entry. That was a direct entry. This is a parallel. A parallel entry means this. You're going to parallel the inbound leg to get yourself turned around. i.e., you're coming from this direction. But you need to fly this way. But I'm coming from that direction. I'm not a helicopter, I just can't get on top of the fix, reverse course, and fly around. A parallel entry is going to be able to allow us to do a U-turn while remaining inside the safe zone to get ourselves established in this direction of the turn. Why is it called parallel? Because as you come in, you arrive at the fix. You're going to parallel the inbound course in the opposite direction, and guess for how long? 1 minute. Remember on that I said this is the safe side. You go outbound 1 minute, you're going to turn yourself into the safe zone to intercept the inbound course on a 45-degree angle. That angle is 45 degrees. You're going to intercept on a 45-degree angle, and now you guys got yourselves established in the proper direction. You arrive at the fix, you fly outbound, you're being the fix. How long do you fly outbound for? You turn around, you use your navigation equipment to get you inbound. Hopefully that's 1 minute. If that isn't 1 minute, you make the adjustment on the holding side, and you just stay in the hold. The parallel entry can be utilized there, here. It's going on out there.
It's trying to put some music on the
Yeah.
Where did John go?
It's a classic double parody with Lego coming in there. So yeah, forget it.
Is that a hi-hat or a cymbal?
Yeah, some good rhythm.
They need more cowbell.
Yeah, there's, you always need.
So if I was flying in from this direction, I would fly to the fix. Number one rule is get to the fix. Once I got to the fix, I would parallel the inbound course. At a minute mark, I would intercept the inbound course at 45 degrees and go in. Same thing here. Same thing here. Get to the fix. Same thing here.
You're finishing that turn at a minute, you're not starting the turn at a minute?
Say that again.
So when you're doing the loop to the 45, do you start the turn at a minute, or you're trying to finish that?
You start the
in a
turn at
second?
1 minute.
Okay.
You would begin the timer. So if I came up from here and I turned outbound to parallel the course, right? I would begin the timer when I'm established in the proper heading for the outbound. I wouldn't time the turn. I wouldn't get up here and time the part of the turn. I would time when I'm established, come outbound for 1 minute, and then begin my turn to come inbound. It's just the way to turn around.
Yeah.
It's making a U-turn in an airplane. Good?
Yeah.
That is a parallel entry. You're paralleling the inbound course to get yourself turned around to fly the hold. One more entry procedure. Here's your fix, whatever it is. Let's just say it's a VOR. Let's say it's a waypoint. Let's say it's a DME waypoint on a radio. Let's say it's a GPS waypoint. Inbound, outbound, inbound. That's your fix. Whatever it is. Standard. Another type of entry would be made if I was coming in from this direction up here. This entry is called a teardrop entry. Incidentally, on the final exam, I ask you, what are the 3 different types of entries? I think that's as far as I go. Direct, parallel, teardrop. Okay? Teardrop entry. What's the first rule? What do I need to get to? I get to the fix. A teardrop entry, this is the safe zone on the inside. I do a 30-degree angle. I make this 30 degrees between the outbound course and the angle that I fly. So if this was 090 inbound, it would be 270 outbound. If I want this to be 30 degrees,
240.
240. I would get to the fix, I would turn to 240. When I'm established at 240, I would start my timer. How long do I time for? 1 minute. At the 1 minute mark, I make a right turn. And now I'm established on the inbound leg. And it forms what looks like a teardrop. Was that?
You flying at 30 degrees?
I'm flying a 30-degree angle between this leg and this leg. So this angle right here is 30 degrees. Good?
So that's the safe zone right there.
You turn, notice, on this one, we turn to the inside of the safe zone. This one, we turn to the inside of the safe zone. That one, you don't need to turn into a safe zone because you're already established in the hold once you arrive. Good? Here's what the FAA says. The question is, well, what entry do I use? Here's what the FAA says. The FAA likes to use this 110-70 rule. Stop complaining. From a different directionality of flight, obviously, but this is a standardized leg. To the right, there's your fix. They say if you're coming in from any of this direction over here, the 70 degrees of directionality, you get to the fix, you do a 30-degree offset, you fly outbound for 1 minute, turn around and come in on any one of these from here to here. Well, what do I do if I'm on the line? I probably wouldn't do a teardrop, I'd probably do a parallel. They say from anywhere up in this area, I would fly to the fix, go outbound for a minute, parallel, and come back in. From over here, I would get to the fix, go outbound, parallel, come back into here. From any of these entries here, I would fly directly to the fix and then get into the turn. I would fly directly to the fix, get into the turn. So now the question is this. Well, how do I determine this in flight? Here's the easiest rule. Do whatever entry that takes the least amount of initial turn when you get to the fix. i.e., let's say this inbound leg is a heading of 270, and that way is 09 or 0. If I was arriving from this direction, and it was a 50-degree turn to get to a parallel entry, right? Or a 10-degree turn to get into a teardrop entry, I would use a teardrop entry. Arrive at the fix, use whatever's the least amount of initial turn when you get there. Again, we're not gonna get too crazy detailed into this because this is more of like the application phase. As far as we're gonna go fly this, I just want you guys to have an idea of how do you do this and how do you turn around. The application phase, they're doing this in the lab. All right, go for it.
If you're coming from, say, the like 190 radial, yeah, just on the edge there. When you get to the fix, would you make a left turn and then a right turn, or would you just kind of go?
If you were a direct entry, that's
Yeah.
a good question. If I was a direct entry, I would get to the fix and just make my right turn.
Right.
Okay? So now, how do we apply this? Let's look at the approach. So again, what was the takeaway on that for this class? The takeaway on that for this class is there's 3 different entry procedures: direct, teardrop, and parallel. For those of you who are in the lab, they have an application phase to it and they start to get it. For those of you who aren't in the lab, if you're in the lab next semester, you'll actually apply. Good? So now, looking at the approach, let's discuss what we would do. You're coming from this direction. We got ourselves to Seal Beach. Here. We're inbound on a course of 049 at 4,000 feet to Sager intersection, but we see that there's a hold in this direction, but I'm going that way. What would I do to get into it? Well, if it's 049, the inverse of 196 is 016 that way. 049 to 016. If I did a parallel entry, i.e., I got to this, and which direction would I turn?
016.
I made a left turn to 016. How many degrees is that turn? 33 degrees. Right? I would make a left turn to a heading of 016, and I would fly outbound for how long?
Minute.
1 minute.
And at the 1 minute mark, I would turn into the safe zone, and I would want to intercept this 196 on a 45-degree angle. So 196 less 45 to figure out the entry, which is roughly 150, 151. I would turn to 151 to intercept, and now I'm established inbound. This one was a 33-degree angle for a parallel entry. Could I do a teardrop here? Absolutely. The FAA doesn't say you have to do this type of procedure. The FAA says we don't care what you do as long as you turn into the safe side. But let's look at the difference in course. 049 to 016 was 33 degrees. But then I would have to add another 30 degrees to make it 63 degrees of a turn, and then I could go outbound for how long?
Minute.
And turn myself around. And that would be a teardrop entry at that hold. 63 degrees versus 33 degrees, I'm gonna pick the 33 degrees because it's the least amount of initial turn. Why? Why would I wanna pick the one that has the least amount of initial turn to enter that procedure to get myself turned around on the course, i.e. a course reversal? Why would I do that? Go for it, Cam.
Does it lessen the error at the first, like having to correct it?
Correct, that's a possibility.
Spatial disorientation.
Spatial disorientation. So we talked about getting spatial, right? So now, the longer you're in a turn, the more you have the semicircular canals moving, the endolymph fluid deflecting the cupola, going to your vestibular nerve, telling your body you're doing something. The longer your ears are telling you you're doing something, the more possibility of you getting lost. Good? In this case, if I was to fly this, I'd come up, I'd hit Sager, I would fly outbound 016 for 1 minute. I would turn around, I'd enter all this on a 45-degree angle and come in. What did I just do? I reversed my course. I made a U-turn. I made a U-turn to intersect the same pathway in. In that case, that would be considered a course reversal. So I did a course reversal, or since the course reversal is involved with a procedure, an instrument approach procedure, that would also be called a procedure turn. That's it. And again, it was just an introduction into the 3 possibilities, direct, teardrop, or parallel for the lecture side of class. The application would come in the lab. Does everyone have kind of an idea? Does it kind of make sense? Good, that's holds, that's all we're gonna go over. Okay, questions? I know there's questions, because everyone's kind of like, what the hell just happened?
Wait, you said 151? What was that again?
What do you
That's
mean?
your 45-degree turning back into the 196.
Yeah.
A 45-degree angle back into 196
Right.
would be
Oh, gotcha.
this heading
Okay.
151.
Alright, so as you're on that 45.
Yeah.
Okay. And so how would you determine when, you don't want to talk about it, when you're supposed to start the turn? After you,
If I got to Sager,
yeah,
if I was a beam the 256 radial
right,
on the localizer, I would know I'm going outbound. Or if I was at 17.3 on the localizer, right, I know I'm at Sager. I'll come around and turn around. In this case, I would get to Sager. I would turn around outbound. The question is, how do you know when you're beam your fix?
right.
When I was established in this case on a course of 1016, I would, because of VOR is not really involved. There's gonna be error,
Yeah.
and it's accounted for the error. How could you do it? If you had equipment that pointed to say your intersection, i.e. a bearing, that would be a bearing 090 if I had a GPS and I had bearing set. When I was at bearing 090, i.e. it's off my right wing, exactly off my right wing, that's when I know I'm a beam the fix.
So bearings and.
Bearing would come into play there.
That's an instrument?
That would be shown on a GPS.
Oh.
It's one of the units on the GPS. Like estimated time on route, estimated time of arrival, desired track. You can have bearing on there as well.
Okay, gotcha. So you just like tack mark and then like,
Yeah.
okay.
Again, not application in here. It was really just in here, just an introduction into the 3 different type of fold entries. What do I want you guys to take away from it again is direct, teardrop, and parallel. It's really all I want you to take away from it. If I ask you on an exam, what are the 3 types? Direct, teardrop, and parallel. Good? Just to know they exist. Questions? Go for it.
You'll be assigned the altitude for the holding pattern, right, by ATC?
Correct. And if you're lost, calm. What does it stay up on the approach plate?
Hold 45,
What are you holding
13.
in between?
4,500 and 3,500.
Yeah. Remember, the entire system is developed for in the event that you were lost calm, it's giving you something. And in this case, if I was inbound from Seal Beach and I was coming in at 4,000 and I had to do the procedure turn, and then I just came in straight for the approach, i.e. I was never assigned the hold. They never said, hold at Sager, because I can't talk to anyone. I would go straight out, if I was coming from Seal Beach, I would get myself turned around, and I would come inbound on the approach. That's the course reversal. In that case, I would hold 4,000 until I cross Sager intersection, after the procedure turn, after the U-turn, right? I would come inbound. I was at 4,000. Once I come inside Sager, what am I allowed to come down to? 3,400. Once I hit Snake, what am I allowed to come down to? 2,800. Once I hit Hook'em, what am I allowed to come down to? 2,200. What is this symbol?
Pressure.
The Maltese cross. What does the Maltese cross identify? According to Sam, it's the
It's the non-precision point where you could.
FAF. What's FAF stand for? It's the non-precision final approach fix. It's the last fix before you're established on the final approach course. The final approach course is found on a heading of 196. There's no turns inside the final approach fix. The Maltese cross would be utilized in this case if it's the non-precision approach. The Maltese cross is utilized for the localizer or the ILS. Non-precision. Localizer. Here's another final approach fix. This right here. That arrow at 2,200 feet is the final approach fix for a precision approach. In this case, the ILS. That's labeled as glide slope intercept. So if anyone ever asked you, where is the final approach fix for an ILS? The answer is glide slope intercept. If someone pointed to this approach and said, if you're flying the ILS, where's the final approach fix? What would the answer be?
That's an A.
Glide slope intercept. Well, let's do that again. You have two choices. The answer is A or B, but the answer is A. If I ask you a question, what's the answer? A. Okay. Thank you for listening. The final approach fix for the ILS is what's called glide slope intercept. Good? That's this symbol here. That happens to happen at 2,200 feet. What does that mean? It means if you're at 7.8 miles from ISNA, 2,200 feet, my glide slope instrumentation should be level. Make sense? That's where I intercepted the glide slope to follow my needle down. 2,200 feet glide slope intercept is the final approach fix for the ILS. Let me ask you this question. On this approach, where's the final approach fix for the ILS?
Glide slope
Intercept.
Glide slope intercept, and where's it at? Give me an altitude.
2023.
There. That's the FAF for the ILS. Now if I ask you this, what's the final approach fix for the localizer? The Maltese cross, and the Maltese cross is located at what intersection? Lemon. See the difference? The ILS utilizes left and right guidance and up and down guidance. On the ILS, you utilize the up and down guidance to identify both the final approach fix, glide slope intercept, and the missed approach point. Let's talk about that. Straight in ILS. Let's forget about everything else but the ILS. What are our minimums?
It's 255 feet and 24.
What's 24 there? 2,400 RVR is the minimum visibility. 255 is what I'm allowed to fly down to on the glide slope. When I reach 255 on the glide slope, that would be considered my DA, decision altitude. So I'm following a glide slope, I'm following an indication, a vertical guidance. Inside the cockpit, there's a needle that shows down or up. I want the needle level, saying I'm following that path down. When I follow that path down, and the needle's centered, I'm at 255 feet, I'm here. That is DA, decision altitude. Write that down. Decision altitude is the missed approach point for the ILS on glide slope. DA. Decision altitude is the missed approach point on the ILS when you're on the glide slope, when you're on the indication saying you're following the vertical guidance down. DH is this number over here, which is 201, decision height. DA is MSL, DH is AGL. So how can I figure that out? Well, 201 to 255 is 54, right?
Airport elevation.
Airport elevation is 54 feet. Tony's tracking. You're with me. You're tracking. DA, decision altitude. Final approach fix for the ILS is an altitude. Everything for the ILS is based off of an altitude on the glide slope. Good? Some people aren't picking this up. We'll go over it more.
So 255 is MSL.
255 is MSL.
All right, and 201 is
AGL. And look, 201 AGL, the airport elevation,
Right.
is 54.
Yeah.
What's 201 plus 54?
255.
Chris, raise your hand.
What's the difference in the DH and the VDA, the vehicle, the VDA next to the SMA?
Where?
I mean, it's the
Visual descent point.
Oh. The VDP here.
Yeah.
The VDP would be utilized for the localizer. The VDP on the localizer is, if you're at 1,040 feet, that's MDA, right? MDH, MDA, MDH, DA, DH. That's in a position where if you're at 1,040 feet, you can continue a normal descent to land for the localizer. The VDP is utilized for localizer course only. So you arrive at MDA, you're 986 feet above the ground, right? Well, the missed approach point for the localizer is this. It's the light. Fucked up tooth now. I did GPS.
I think you just missed it. That's fine. Got it.
How far do my headlights go out?
75 feet.
How far is that deer from me now? 75 feet.
75 feet.
Well, what they're saying is at that speed, you need 2,400 feet to be able to see in order to be able to transition or stop the airplane on the runway or stop the car before you hit the deer. That's all that forward visibility is.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, somewhat. And it's,
I was going to talk about your soup, but we're not going to go there yet.
well,
Questions on this? Go for it.
What if you keep getting down to that decision altitude,
Yep.
you can't see the runway, and you keep going around and you still can't see it?
So in that case, you're not going to keep going around. What you're going to do in that case is you're going to execute the missed approach procedure. You get down to your DA, decision altitude. What's the DA on the ILS here? You're on the glide slope at 255 DA. You get down to 255, you're here, you can't see the runway. You're going to, in two places, climb straight out to 3,000 feet to cross the 196 radial to Minnow intersection and hold. Says it up here as well. Climb to 3,000 on ISNA localizer, the south course, 196. to minnow intersection, 10.9 DME. And hold. You're gonna go out to minnow intersection. It actually doesn't even say and hold. You're gonna get out to minnow. Approach control is gonna be like, what do you wanna do? I really messed that approach up. I was really high on the glide slope. The glide slope is way down there, but when I hit 255, right, or whatever it was, I'd like to try it again. Or I was right on glide slope. I hit 255. You guys are reporting 100 feet above the ground for the clouds. I'd like to go to my alternate airport. And then and then go to your alternate. You execute the missed approach procedure and you make a decision. Do I ask him to revector me around? Do I hope? Right? Or do I go missed? To finalize it. Here's what happened at Ramona today. An airplane came in. It was foggy here this morning. It was low IFR. The fog rolled in at Ramona probably around 10 this morning. And it got low IFR there. Well, there's an aircraft coming in on the approach. Ramona Airport's like this. There's an airplane coming in on the approach from the west to the east. Well, the fog rolled in and it was like over here. So it's all foggy. They couldn't fly in on the approach. It was a Cessna 150 from Hemet, November 22155. He just stuck out on top of the airport for about an hour until the fog rolled back and they landed. I was talking to the tower while this was happening. This is a true story. It's the tower girl's birthday there. And I was saying happy birthday. And I said, what are you doing? She's like, I'm waiting for were her words, I'm waiting for this dumbass to make a decision to finally leave. I was like, well, why? Because they're sitting circling and it's completely foggy in here and it's a 150. What are they gonna do? Wait until they run out of fuel? They got lucky, they circled for an hour and the fog receded. What happened if the fog never receded? And then they didn't have enough fuel to get to their alternate. That's what you do. Make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, go for it, Chris.
So the missed approach, that's for just general aviation. Airline pilots, can they do this in zero viz?
It depends on the approach. In this case, this is what the airline pilots are flying. No. But if it's a category 3C approach and the minimums are 0-0, come on in and land.
What's category 3C?
So category 1 approach, that's what this is.
Right, sure.
It's category 1 ILS, typically finalized at 200 feet AGL. Category 2 approach, special air crew, special aircraft certifications required. Finalized at 100 feet AGL. Category 3 approach, cut that in half, finalized at 50 feet AGL. That's their decision height. A, B, and then category 3C approach, 0-0 is the minimums. They have dual inertial navigation systems, dual VMEs, GPS, RNAV1, RNAV2, whatever it is, and they can come in all the way in without being able to see anything. Pretty cool.
Yeah. The quality and quantity of the instruments and the crew.
Yeah. Yeah, the quality of the equipment on board,
What kind of aircraft are flying with that?
a lot. A lot. I mean, they've been doing that since the 60s. Yeah. A lot. You know, I don't know if there's really too many like small single engine GA aircraft that are equipped for category 3 approaches. But you know, all of the airlines for the most part, unless Southwest. Yeah, all the majors. Just think, if you're burning, you know, if you're coming across from Korea or wherever and you've got 12 hours of fuel on board and it's taking you 10 hours, they want to make sure you can get down. Cool? Questions? All right, so for next week, what are you guys gonna bring? Copy of the terps. We're gonna go through the terps. I would like you guys to pass the San Diego Miramar call. Please do it, because if you don't do it, I won't be here next week because Max will kill me. I won't be showing up next week. Please pass those to the center. Last number listed closest to the runway, 1.1. Imagine if I was right over the top of the runway, 986 feet above the ground. It's gonna be pretty tough to land, right? If I established a normalized descent to land, I might not even be to the ground by the end of the runway. So what the VDP does is it says at 1,040 feet at 2.2 miles off of ISNA, you can maintain a normal descent to your landing point versus if I was 1,000 feet over the runway, if I maintained a normal descent to land, I'd be landing down here if I was coming in this direction. Probably not a good idea. Here's what people have done in the past. 986 feet above the ground, 1040 MSL. I'm at 1.1, there's my missed approach point. Hey, look, I can see the runway. Burning hole. And the FAA is like, why do we see all these burning holes at the end of the runway? What's going on here? Oh, people are arriving at the missed approach point when they can finally get visual on the airport and they're diving to land. We need to give them a position on that approach plate that shows them, hey, at this distance from the runway, you can maintain a normal slope to landing. Make sense?
So is that as if to say that once you're past the VDP, you shouldn't actually attempt an approach and landing?
That's exactly what it's saying.
Oh, okay. So why don't they just make the missed approach point where the issue is?
I don't know.
Oh,
That's a very good question.
right.
And I don't know the answer to that question.
Oh.
I think there would be too many changes. And the FAA doesn't like that. Lil, you had a question? Oh. Are you picking this up, Chris?
Yeah,
Like, you're coming in under canopy,
right,
and your landing zone is right there. And it's supposed to be a swoop landing.
right.
You can't make a swoop landing from this position if your landing zone is right beneath you. If you do a swoop, you're gonna land 2 miles down that way. So they're saying at the designated altitude, from this distance from your landing zone, if you began your swoop maneuver, you'll hit your LZ.
Right.
That makes sense.
Right.
Cool.
For precision or non-precision, the AGL is stated just for reference.
The AGL is stated for reference,
That's it.
which is your DH. What's normalized DH for an ILS? How many feet above the ground?
200.
200 feet. In this case, it's pretty normal. What's the normal glide slope angle? 3 degrees. So they're just giving you a reference. At your missed approach point, your DA is your missed approach point for an ILS because you have vertical guidance. You're following that vertical guide. Let me draw. Let me put a picture of this. A lot of people, I think, in the class who aren't in the lab are having a hard concept of grabbing or of understanding the glide slope. But we're gonna go over it more with visuals. I'm just trying to give a fundamental here. Don't worry, this isn't the last time we're going over this, by the way. In the cockpit, you have a navigation radio. The navigation radio has 2 needles on it. I'm gonna make the needles different colors. One needle is the vertical needle called the localizer. The localizer is a course, if this is my runway, the localizer is a course that emanates from the far end of the runway out like this. That's horrible. It emanates out like that. There's a center line desired. If I'm over here on the approach and I want to be aligned with the runway, this needle is over here. And it's saying, hey, you need to fly to the right to get on the center line. So I turn the airplane to the right. That needle starts to come in. When that needle comes in and it's centered, the aircraft is here on the center line. Not necessarily going in the direction of the center line, but here on the center line. The idea is to fly the same direction as the course when the needle is centered. Does that make sense to everybody? I.e., I could be flying in that direction, going up this way, and when the airplane is here, the needle is centered, but if I keep on flying in that direction, all of a sudden the needle is going to be like, you just shot right through it, and now the course is off to your left. Here's what beginning instrument students do when they're trying to fly the ILS down. That's what they all do. Because they don't get the concept of there's a tightrope. And if I'm walking on this tightrope, I need to walk in the exact same direction of the tightrope. And if I'm walking on that tightrope and I step to the left of the tightrope, I fall off of it. I need to walk right on that tightrope, so I need to get the aircraft established on the tightrope, center lined. And I need to have the airplane tracking over the ground in the same direction. Now, the nose of the airplane, if it's on that line, might be pointed to the left, so your heading is that way, but your ground track is that way. What would the scenario of that be? There's a crosswind. The wind is going like that. So I need to establish a crab angle, so I'm pointing the nose into the wind, but the airplane's tracking straight down the center line. Wind correction angle. That's the localizer course. From the side view, here's the runway. About 1,000 feet down the runway, there's this little box called the glide slope. The glide slope emanates a course as well. The glide slope is desired to be on the center line. That same piece of equipment now has a horizontal needle. If I'm coming into land and I'm low on the glide slope, the aircraft is located here coming into land, this needle is going to say, hey dude, or dudette, the glide slope's above you. Okay, I climb a little bit. Now I get myself right on the glide slope. Now the needle is level. If I climb too high, now I'm up here on the vertical path, well now the needle goes below me. Saying, hey, you need to get down to get to the glide slope. So on this approach, that 2200 glide slope intercept, you're following in, and boom, there's that symbology. It's a little arrow, little zigzag, 2,200 feet, glide slope intercept. Boom. If I was at that position, I would want to confirm on my equipment that the glide slope's level in this position at 2,200 feet. Hey, look, my equipment's right. Does that make sense? Final approach fix for the ILS, glide slope intercept. And then what do? My goal is to keep this line level. I don't want to get under glide slope. I don't want to get over glide slope, meaning the glide slope is below me, meaning the glide slope is above me. I don't want that. I want to follow that path all the way down, right in the center of the vertical guidance. I keep that glide slope indication level in the cockpit. I'm following that line all the way down. It's like there's a laser being pointed out from the end of the, or 1,000 foot down the runway, and I'm going to stay right on that laser beam. And if I follow that laser beam down, and I hit a specific altitude, and typically that position is co-related or co-located with a position that's 200 feet above the ground. If I looked up and I was at that distance from the runway where I looked up and the glide slope was, the laser was 200 feet above me, right? That's DH, decision height. That's where I would follow that center line down and say, boom, I'm at that position now. DA for the altitude. What was DA for this approach? DA was 255. That would be at 255 feet. on my altimeter. Because that position is correlated to 201 on this approach. And the airport elevation, here's the ocean down here. The airport is 54 feet above the ocean, which is MSL. So at that position, as I'm following the glide slope down, I'm 201 feet above the landing elevation, but the airport elevation is 54 feet above the ground. Therefore, that position is 255 feet MSL, which is DA, DH. So I'll follow that guidance down, i.e. I see that little laser and I want to stay right on that laser. If I'm going down, the laser's above me, that indicator would show up. If I'm above it, hey look, the laser's below me, that needle would go down. And I'm following it all the way down until I get to that position, 255 feet as indicated inside the cockpit. That's where I make my decision. Can I continue to land? Or am I still in the clouds and do I have to execute the missed approach procedure? DA, decision altitude, is the altitude where the glide slope indication is level inside the cockpit and the altimeter tells me I'm at that position. DH tells me when I'm at that position, how high am I above the ground? Normal for an ILS, 200 feet above the ground. Does that help? Go for it.
So the RVR number just says
Runway
that
visual
should be
range.
that far away.
So no, RVR is now saying is, this is how far I can see down the runway. So if I can see that far down that runway, well, I should be able to see the same distance over here, right? So what RVR value is saying is, you need the flight visibility component in order to continue this approach. Imagine this. I get to this position, and let's just say for giggles, that position is 1.5 miles from the airport, right? That position. And what the minimum visibility component is saying you need 2 miles of visibility. Well, imagine if I got, and the clouds were right here. I know picture's kind of getting a little bit construed. I'm gonna get rid of all this crap. I'm coming down, I'm coming down, I'm coming down. Let's just say for giggles, the clouds are here. Those are clouds. All the way out. I'm in the clouds, I'm in the clouds, the clouds are all the way out. You guys get it. I'm in the clouds, I'm in the clouds, I'm in the clouds. I get on to the approach, I'm on the glide slope, I'm following it down, I'm following it down. Boom! I'm below the clouds. Cool, the instruments did their job. I'm aligned with the runway, I'm below the clouds. But that's not the only component that I need to be aware of. Just because I'm out of the clouds, it doesn't mean my forward visibility is very good, right? So let's just say for giggles, this approach, forward visibility, it needs to be 4,000 feet RVR. Let's just say they say it's 2 miles. I need to be able to judge, okay, well, can I see 2 miles in front of the airplane to be able to land?
So how do you know what the conversion is to it? Because the thing in the front only gives you like a minimum of 1,000 or 1,600.
No, go to that scale. It says 4,000 RVR is equivalent to 3/4 of a mile.
But this one's like 24 RVR. It's below the scale.
This one's 2,400.
Oh, okay.
You add 2 zeros to it, just like everything else in aviation.
Gotcha.
So 2,400 RVR is equivalent to 1 mile visibility, right?
Yeah.
So now, how do I know, and that's kind of ironic, 2,400 RVR. How do I know if I have that visibility to the runway? What would I use? The approach lighting system. The approach lighting system on a Mauser happens to be 2,400 feet long. Hey, look, I broke out and I can see the entire approach lighting system. I've got the required visibility, I can legally land. Starting to make a little bit of sense?
Yeah, it makes more sense now it's not 24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good, go for it.
Why do some airports have RVR instead of sledge?
Because
Can you?
there's multiple runways maybe.
Right.
There are some sort of anomaly at the airport, i.e. if I look in that direction, it's really easy to see.
Right.
But if I look in that direction, it's really hard to see. Therefore, like, if you're over the water or in the area of water and there's a setting sun, there's a bunch of mist in the environment, it might be horrible. I might only be able to see a mile that way, but looking that way, I can see 30 miles. And the ATIS says, sky clear, 10 miles visibility, but I'm coming in this way going, that's not 10 miles visibility.
Yeah.
I'm a mile from the airport. So it says, looking down that runway, this is how far you can see.
So you have to make that decision.
At the decision altitude.
And once you've broken through the clouds, you're like, oh great, this is all good.
I have the required visibility to continue my landing.
Okay. So it's quite a last minute.
It's sketchy. You're coming into land. You're in the friggin' clouds. You're going 1.5 miles a minute at 90 knots. You're coming down. You're at roughly 500 feet per minute. You're coming down, and now I'm 200 feet above the ground. I'm in a 20-story building, not very high.
Yeah.
And you look up and you say, can I land or not?
So in that instant, you've got to measure.
You gotta say, do I have the required visibility and am I out of the clouds?
I mean,
That's
you
the
still have
decision.
2.2 miles.
You have roughly 30 seconds.
Well, no, because you're at your decision altitude.
Yeah, but it's 2.2 miles away from.
From the airport.
Yeah, so it's,
In this case.
in this case, yeah.
No, but as in saying.
No, it's not. In this case, it's just outside 1.1 miles.
Sorry, 1.1 mile.
In this case, here, this is this. This position, you're following the glide slope down, you're following. This was your final approach fix. This was here. You get established on the glide slope. I confirm I'm at 2,200 feet is my glide slope level. Because that would tell me, is my instrumentation correct? I'm at 2,200 feet, my glide slope's level. Cool, it's all correct. Like if I was at 2,200 feet here, but the glide slope was way above me, I'd be like, actually here, my altimeter is not set right. There's a problem. I don't want to die today. I'm at 2,200 feet. I happen to be at 7.8. My glide slope is level. Cool. Instrument checks. It's the last safety check. And then I come down. I'm following that vertical guidance, and I get down to 255 feet. That's here. That's the end of the solid line. That's the decision altitude position for the ILS. I make the decision on the ILS at an altitude on the glide slope. I'm following that laser down. I've got it right in front of me. I'm falling down. My altimeter says 255. Look up.
Oh, that makes sense.
Can I see the runway? Shit, no. Missed approach procedure.
It's not distance from the runway, it's an altitude.
It's an altitude. It's the missed approach point for the ILS. I'm following the laser pointer. I've got it right in front of me. I can see it. I can see that green laser pointer coming all the way, and I'm right on it. I'm coming down. Boom, 255 feet on my altimeter. Look up. There's the runway, aligned perfectly. Let's continue our runway landing. Decision, altitude. I look up at 255 and I make a decision. Can I land or not? Go for it.
So this is the reason why with places they get a lot of fog, flights not landing, because even with the instruments you don't have that visibility.
You don't have that either forward visibility, or the clouds are so low that at 255 on the altimeter, which are 201 feet AGL, you're still in the clouds.
I'm still confused with the forward visibility part.
The visibility right now, Ben, is 10 feet in this room.
Okay.
Can I see you?
No.
Let's say this desk right here is 10 feet. It's probably pretty damn close to you.
Alright.
Can I see you?
No.
Can I see you?
No.
Can I see you?
No.
Can I see you?
Get in there. I can't tell.
Can I see you now?
Yes.
Wouldn't it be a good idea if I can see the runway before I landed on it?
Probably.
That's the horizontal visibility component. Now let's say you're the runway and this desk right here is 2400 RVR.
Okay.
But this desk right here is 255. I'm 255 on the glide slope. I look up. Can I see you?
No.
That's a problem. I have to go missed.
And so that's the 24 right there.
That's the 2400 RVR.
Gotcha. Okay. And then that's what we were doing with the converting and stuff.
That's why we're doing the converting. Because the ATIS might say, visibility is a half a mile. Well, that happens to be 2,400. But what if the ADIS says visibility is 3 miles? I know I'm gonna have that 2,400. But let's say the ADIS says visibility is 3 feet. It's not gonna say 3 feet, but let's just say it does.
Right.
Can it say 3 feet? No. So what does it come down to? RVR. And it says, oh, the runway visual range is 1,200 feet. Well, there's a problem. Because I need 2,400 to land.
Okay.
Does that make more sense?
So there are times where you've peeked out of the clouds, but you still don't have.
Let me go this way. Totally off topic, but it happens to people and you'll get it. We're gonna end on this. RVR. The stopping distance of my car is 100 feet. My car at 60 miles an hour, my car is going that way,
You slam on the brakes.
and my stopping distance at 60 miles per hour is 100 feet. Good?
Okay.
You're with me.
Takes 100 feet to stop.
It takes 100 feet to stop.
Okay.
I'm making shit up.
Okay.
My headlights go out 75 feet. So it would take here to stop. That's 100 feet, but my headlights only go out 75 feet.
Okay.
Good?
Yeah.
But it takes 100 feet to stop.
Okay.
And there's a deer. Oh, deer.
Squirrel.
Big ass eyes looking at you.
It's a big squirrel.
It's a beaver.
Your headlights don't see the deer, but the deer is inside your stopping distance.
Right.
You get to a position here where you can actually see the big squirrel,
Yeah.
and you slam on your brakes, what's gonna happen?
You're still gonna kill us.
Yeah. That's RVR.
Okay.
Does that help a little
Yeah,
bit?
Kind of. I mean, RVR is just the distance.
The forward visibility that you need in order to continue your landing
Okay.
segment. So now, I can see, I know the car takes 100 feet to stop. There's a deer out 100 feet in front of me. But my headlights only go out 75 feet.
Mhm.
The moment that deer